All right, good afternoon, everyone. Today is day 54 of our online AWD1115 database-driven website development 2 class. All right, today we're going to start on the final project, I should say. I did attach a file this morning, and I've also sent you a folder. We'll talk about that in just a bit. All right, now I've got here, we will continue to work on this project for the rest of the week, and that's true, yet it's false. What I mean is this. We'll work on it today. We will work on it tomorrow. But the point I want to get us to tomorrow is where we'll be talking about authorization and authentication. So what I want to do on Wednesday is go over the chapter 16 in our textbook on authorization and authentication, and even do one of the projects there and go through the end of the chapter exercise. All right. All of next week, as it says right there, will be lab. I'll have limited availability. What does that mean? That means that I'm going to be in charge next week of watching a young man who just turned 3 months today. All right. And as much as I can be around when he's down sleeping, etc., I'll be available. All right. You should know by now, Rankin will be closed next Thursday and Friday for the Thanksgiving holiday. All right, and of course, we'll pick it up again on the following Monday. All right, now I'm going to show you a piece of paper that I have not sent out, but I will, okay? And what I tried to do here was kind of lay out what we'll be doing for the rest of the semester. Because with today being today 54, that means we've got 26 days left. So in other words, 5 weeks. All right, so we'll work on the final project today and tomorrow. On Wednesday, I plan on lecturing on chapter 16. On Thursday, we'll go through the end of the chapter 16 exercise, which is review and improve the bookstore web app. If there's time, in other words, if either we finish the lecture on 16 early or we finish the end of the chapter exercise for 16, we'll jump into project 16.1. Add authorization to the quarterly sales app. All right. And this is what we're going to try to do then for the rest of the week. What we don't finish, we won't finish next week, but we'll finish the following week. As it says, you will be formally assigned both project 16.1 and the last 2 case study projects. Okay, well, again, we'll talk about this more as we go on. Now, we're going to start on the project right now. And what we're going to work on is my version of the project. All right. But what I'd eventually like you to do is to pick something you want to sell. This is going to be a mythical e-commerce site. I am going to sell different types of balls, in particular about 6 types: baseballs, footballs, basketballs, golf balls, bowling balls, and I think there's one other one, but that's what we'll be talking about. All right. I'd like you to figure out what you would like to sell, and you will hopefully take what we do in this project here and use it kind of as a baseline or whatever to do your own project. All right. I'd like it to be a product that you're going to be selling, not food related though. All right. I'll want you to create your own database data. I sent you a copy of my data today, right before class started. All right, I'd like you to have 50 to 100 records for your product. And you go, oh, that's way too many. Then make it 50. That's okay. I've got 42 in mine. Now, one of the things I have not done, but I'm going to ask you to do, is to provide pagination. It'll be in the book. All right, we will talk about it. In other words, if you decide you want to put 6 products on each page and you have 50 products, you should have 9 pages, 8 pages with 6 records each and 1 page with 2 records. Hopefully that just makes sense. In the example that we're going to go over right now, I purposely did not create my own homepage. All right. In other words, I just left the kind of junky looking page that we get from that's built for us when we work on our projects. So part of the grade for this project, as it says, will be the amount of design, effort, etc., that you put into it. All right. Now, that may be fair, that may not be. You might come back to me and I might take off for points that saying that you didn't spend much time on it. You might email me back and say that isn't true. I spent a ton of time on it. And I'm more than more than willing to have that conversation with anyone and with everyone. The main reason I'm going about this is I'm kind of making some changes in my teaching pedagogy. And what I mean is what I'm finding this semester, not with you guys, but with the first year people, is I'll do a project in class and then I'll assign something. And what people will do is the project I just did with them. And what I don't want is I don't want mini me's. I really and truly don't. All right. Okay. Number 5 says you will create your own 15-minute video. Yeah, I want you to do that. And I know Evan has had you guys do that kind of thing as well. As it says, in which you will professionally introduce yourself and demonstrate your project. In other words, and I'm being serious here because I don't think this is funny, but I will expect as an example that you will dress appropriately. And I don't mean that you have to have a suit and tie on. Can you put on a suit and tie? That's your call. But I don't want you in like holy jeans or holy whatever. Now, if it's only going to be your face, it won't matter. All right. As it says, you will professionally introduce yourself and demonstrate your project. All right. Number 6, your project must be added to the internet using basically Azure. We're going to be doing this in class together, so you don't have to worry about it if you don't understand it. All right. For the rest of the semester, as it says there, we're going to be going over chapters 16 and 17. At the end of chapter 16, they have you do some more work on the bookstore project. It's been kind of a running project throughout here. We will do the same. We will go through that. All right. Then for 16.1, I'm going to ask that you work on that on your own, which is adding authorization to the quarterly sales app program. All right. I'm also going to ask that you attempt at least to do the chapter 15 and 16 Sports Pro case study stuff yourselves. All right. If it turns out that that's way too tough for everybody, then we'll work on it together. All right. For chapter 17, as it says, you will be asked to put both your completed bookstore app and your completed final project once it's done, including databases used, out on the internet. We will go through and hopefully take the bookstore one and put it out there together so you'll know exactly what it is you're supposed to be doing. Finally, next week is Thanksgiving week. All right, it will be lab for the entire week. I will be quote off unquote for the week. In other words, I'm going to be home. I'll be on the system, but I'll also be babysitting a 3-month-old. All right. So I will be available via email. I may not be able to answer your email immediately, but any email or emails that I get will be answered on that day. All right. Now, I kind of got, I don't want to say chastised. I don't want to say yelled at, but talked to. And this wasn't by Evan. This was by somebody else that said, you're not supposed to do what you did. And what I mean is I had 13 days of vacation left. So I was told either take them or lose them. They did let me push 5 of those days off into next spring, which left me with like 8 days. All right. Maybe it was 11 days. I don't know, but it was something like that. So I'm going to be off, as I said, next week, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Also, all the Fridays that we meet in December. What that means is all those Fridays will be lab. That doesn't mean I won't be on the system. I will be. All right. To be honest with you, what I'll be trying to do on those Fridays is get ahead for spring. All right. Just so, like I said, so you have some kind of an idea, all right, of what it is I'm talking about. All right. Now, I will clean this piece of paper up that I've got right here. It's not a piece of paper, but I'll clean this file up and I'll send it out to you. All right. If there's something on it after you read it you don't understand, feel free to email me on it. Okay. So what I'd like to do right now is have us start on what I'm hoping at least will end up being the final project. And again, I want to make sure you understand this. I'm going to work on this with you. All right. I am going to be selling different types of balls. All right. And I already mentioned to you basically what types those are. Okay. And I'm going to be going through it starting today, also working on it tomorrow. All right. Then, like I said, Wednesday and Thursday. All right. We will work on chapter 16 so we can be ready so that after our Thanksgiving break, all right, we can do the last part of this together. What I'm going to ask that you do then is, you'll have kind of a working copy or hopefully a working copy and break off and do your own thing with it. All right. That's why I am purposely not giving you a home page, and we're not going over everything that's in here. But what we don't go over literally on the project, we will go over or have gone over in our textbook already. Now, hopefully what I just said made at least a little bit of sense to you. All right. So this is what I'm going to do right now. And that is, oh, this is the other thing. I sent you the images that I used for this. Okay, so you do have them. It's in a folder called images that I put into a folder called the images. I don't even want to get into why I did that, but I did. All right, we'll talk about all this in just a bit. All right. One thing that I've been guilty of this entire semester, and I have to get over this. I don't know why I've got this problem, but I do. And that is, I think that on many occasions, I've tried to get us through stuff too quickly. All right. You may agree with that. You may not agree with that. So one of the things I'm going to try to do with this project is slow it down and make sure everybody understands what we're doing, how we're doing it, why we're doing it, etc. So it will be your responsibility. I mean, Grant does a great job here when he doesn't get something or something doesn't work that he asks. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. But for the rest of you, if something doesn't make sense, or if you're trying to do something and it just isn't working, then the best thing that you can do is to take that, put it into a repo and send it to me. And when I say that, don't put it into your repo that you've got everything in the world in. Make a new repo and just send me that. It's so much easier for me to work with a single repo. All right. Okay. So with that said, we're going to start on it right now. I got a lot of junk out here and I want to clean this up a little. So this is going to be basically a store that sells balls. So I'm going to make a folder and I'm going to call it Ball Store. You can call it whatever you want. You will not be turning this in. This is designed to be used as your template. So when you work on your project, you'll have something that you can use. All right. So I'm going to come over here, make a new folder, and I'm going to call it Ball Store, one word. All right, so there it is. With that said, I'm now going to start up Visual Studio. All right, I am going to come in and create a new project. As always, it'll be an ASP.NET Core Web App Model View Controller. All right. And I'm going to call it just what I call that folder, and that is Ball Store. And I'm going to call everything Ball Store. I'm going to call the project name Ball Store. I'm going to call the solution name Ball Store. And I'm going to put it into a folder named, here's a surprise, Ball Store. All right. And you're not turning this in. So however you do it is up to you. All right. Now, Ball Store, everything looks good. That it doesn't matter. So I'm going to click next. Now, please, in this particular example, make sure that you do have that checkbox there for configure for HTTPS. What my hope is that we're going to get to a certain point this week, all right? And then next week, not next week, I'm sorry, the week after that, the 27th, we'll pick it up and go further. And then if need be on the last week, we'll pick it up and go and finish it up. All right. Okay. So that should be everything, 7, authorization type none. Now, if we went in here and set this up, we could literally put individual accounts in there and have it set up some stuff for us automatically ourselves. All right. If you want to try that, you can, but I'm not going to do it that way. I'm going to go and add everything. And we'll talk about how to do all that stuff. Not today, but we will very soon. So I've got it configured for HTTPS, and I'm going to create. Now, when we started this, what I thought of doing was starting with an empty project and having us add everything, but we've done that once. Plus, to me, that can actually end up being fairly problematic. All right, because if one person doesn't get something, I don't want to hold anybody up, is what I'm saying. All right, so we're going to do this, like I said, very intuitively, I hope, and very much the way we've been doing things pretty much the entire semester. All right, or at least I've been trying to. And that is, I'm going to start with tools. I'm going to go to my NuGet package manager, and I'm going to go to manage NuGet packages for solution. All right. Then I'm going to go over to browse. There's nothing in there. I mean, I haven't put anything in yet, so I'm going to put in Microsoft dot entity framework core dot. All right. And you can see what's there. As always, we're going to add tools and we're going to add SQL Server. In the end, the order in which you add those does not matter. All right. I just am used to adding tools first. So there that is. Tools, project. You've seen this multiple times before. Install. I've got that middle step skipped, so I can just accept and then do it one more time, get rid of tools, and I'm going to put in SQL Server. All right, there that is. Okay, and again, I'm going to install and again accept when it comes up. Now, you shouldn't have to put in the core. All right, I've tried doing the same project both with core in there and without it. Let me just tell you that before they came up with this tools one that's in here that we've been using, you used core. All right, it was usually core and SQL Server, but I've tried doing it both ways. I've done the same project both ways. I don't see any advantage to including just the core. All right, now could I be wrong? Of course, but I haven't seen it in the examples I've gone through. All right, so I'm going to close this. You've seen me do this before, just because I am very untrustworthy. Is I'm going to come back to that again, and I'm going to go over to installed just to double check. I've got SQL Server and tools, and I do. All right, nothing big there, nothing that we haven't already gone through there. All right, next, I'm going to go into my app settings.json file. Again, you've seen this multiple times before. I'm going to keep this nice and small, so hopefully I can put everything in here and you can see it. And I'm going to put in my comma. And then here, we're going to have our connection strings. And I think I've mentioned this before on the off chance I foolishly did not. All right. You can call this connection string anything you want. I've been giving it basically the name of my context file. You don't have to do that. All right. I mean, if you're more comfortable calling it something else, you can do that. It won't really matter. All right. But I am going to just call mine because I'm working with balls here. I'm going to call it ball context. And again, you've seen all this before. I need my colon, sorry. All right. And then here, the server equal, again, you've seen all this stuff already. Local DB, MSSQL, local DB, database equal. Now I have a database already named balls. I'm going to name mine balls DB. I'm going to set my trusted connection to true. And I'm going to set my multiple active result sets to true. All right, so that should be everything. I like to always double check, make sure I didn't misspell anything. If I did spell anything or misspell, I don't see it. So I don't think I have. So I'm going to save this. And I'm going to close this. Again, as we oftentimes do then, the next thing I'm going to open is my program.cs file. All right. And in my program.cs file, right underneath my add controller with views, again, we've done this multiple times. I'm going to put in my builder.services.add DB context. This will again be that ball context. All right. We don't have a ball context yet, which is why we're getting that error, but the rest of it, hopefully yours came up as well and you didn't have any errors. Now, one thing we're going to do, not right this second, but in just a few minutes, is we're going to add some stuff into here that I don't believe we've added before. And I will go back and reference the page that they talk about in the book before we add it, just so that you see what the heck I'm talking about. All right. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here into my models. All right. So what I'm going to do, just so you know, is I'm going to throw everything into this models folder. I don't want you to do that. All right. In other words, in the last project that we looked at in the book, they broke it up into their own directories, all right, in folders. I'd like you to do that. All right. And just what you have under models should be basically set up like that one. And if you don't remember what I'm talking about, I'll try to look for it during the break. All right. And I'm not going to lie to you, I was lazy. And I figured, well, this would be a good chance for you to go out and kind of stretch this and put this out on your own. So the first thing I'm going to do in models is I'm going to create two classes in here, one for my balls, that we're going to be selling and one for the categories of each type of ball. When we get done with that, the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to put in my ball context file. And then hopefully at that time, that error right there will go away. All right, so I'm going to start under models here, and I'm going to add a class. And it really and truly doesn't matter which one we add first. The category is easier. So I'm going to add category.cs. All right, I'm going to make sure, of course, that it's a class. After we get done with this, we are going to be going and adding a couple of interfaces as well. So category.cs. All right, so there that is. Let me blow that up a little bit. Okay, and okay, so we've got our namespace in here. We don't have any usings. We will in just a minute. All right, but or we may not in this one. It's no big thing. So I've got 4 fields in here. Public, int, category ID with a get set, public string, and I prefaced everything with what I'm talking about. So category name with a get set, public string, category description with a get set, and public, we're going to have a list, and it'll be of type ball. So we're going to get an error here because we don't have a type ball yet. Or we might get an error. If we do, don't worry about it. Okay, it'll be fixed in just a minute. Call balls. All right, now I've made the decision that I'm tired of all these things. So I'm going to do 2 things here. All right, I'm going to put a question mark at the end of each one of these strings. And I'm going to set it up so it's equal to string.empty. I'm doing both of them. All right, there's one. There's the other. And I believe if I put a question mark here, that one went away. Now there's still the error here because we haven't made that yet. You probably already know this, but if I put my mouse here, I could have it generated for me right there. Okay, which wouldn't hurt anything. All right, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to make my own copy. All right, and the other thing in here, I'm just going to set this equal to null. All right, and again, with those question marks that we put in there, technically, you don't have to initialize it to anything because the question marks are saying that it's okay basically to not have anything in there. But I'm just trying to make sure that we minimize the number of warnings that we get while we're working in here. So that's the first one. Now we could come in, we could put required here, and we could put required here, etc. It doesn't hurt, so I guess we can. So let's come in here. Whoops, not there. And I will put in required, and we'll give it an error message. We've done this countless times. Equal something like you must enter a category name. All right. And if we wanted to, it's got a paren there that I'm missing. And if we want to, all right, we don't have to do this, but if we want to, and what does that light here? The name error message. Oh, that's because we don't have that using statement. And yes, we do. Required. There we go. All right, so you must enter a category name. We can give it a length if we want in here. We could give it a type if we wanted in here. We could put all that stuff in there. All right, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to leave it the way that it is. And I'm going to copy this. And I'm going to put the same thing before the category description. All right, so you must enter a category name and you must enter a category description. Okay, now, if you don't like what I used for a description, all right, I went out and found a sports ipsum ball.com. Well, sports and ball, etc. That's the good news. The bad news is that almost everything that came up was all hockey, and we're not even selling hockey stuff at our store. So if you don't like that, you can make your own. You can just use lorem ipsum. You can use anything you want in there. All right. So we've got this, and right now it's giving us that error and no other errors. That's good. So I'm going to do a file, save all on here, leave this open, and I'm going to create another thing in here. And that is I'm going to come in and add a new class, and that class will be called ball.cs. .cs. All right. You probably notice almost as soon as we do that, okay, that error is now gone. All righty. Now this one, I was a little bit more specific, or whatever you want to call it. I don't know, but we'll be basically putting the same kinds of stuff in here. So I've got a public int ball ID with a get set. That was the first thing. And then not everything, but most everything else that I put in here was required. All right. I have this set up for both a thumbnail and for an image for each one of these things in here. All right. But those aren't required. Most everything else is required, starting with ball name. So public string. And again, I put everything in here. I was trying to be as descriptive as possible. All right, so public string ball name. And again, I put a question mark there and I put equals string dot empty. If that is too much for you, if you don't want the question mark and you just want to initialize it, hey, this is your project right here. All right. I am going to look and make sure on your copy of this that you did the little things. In other words, all right, I'm really hoping that I'm not going to get this and it works, but it's got 73 warnings in it. All right, that you found a way to minimize the warnings as best you possibly could. All right, so the next thing we have in here is a description. All right, so let me move that up a little. That's the second one. And the next one is a price. Now, some of the things that we went over that we've done in class, some of these prices have been kind of outrageous. So I just gave it a range of 1 to 1,000. You know, as always, if you don't like what I'm using in here for names or whatever, this copy right here, you're not turning in. All right. But I want you to, again, just to start to come up with your own way of doing things here. Now, I did this, but since the minimum is $1, I probably should have put in 1.00 or 1.0 M. I didn't do that, but it probably makes more sense considering I set a minimum right there. All right. All right. About halfway through with this one. The next one, nothing on it. except I did initialize it to string.empty. And again, if you'd like, put a question mark there, totally fine. All right. Now I'm going to actually copy this one. And why? Because I want image thumbnail URL. All right, so each image is going to have a thumbnail, and these are not your typical sizes of thumbnails. They're going to be actually bigger than what you typically see. All right, we're also going to ask a couple questions. So I'm going to have two Boolean variables in there. Number one, is the ball on sale? All right, and number two, is the ball in stock? Well, I'm going to set it up so that the balls are always going to be in stock, but not every ball is going to be on sale. And you'll see that as we go through this. And I'm going to take this one and I'm going to default it to false. All right. Same kind of thing with ball in stock. All right. Couple more. We're going to have a foreign key in here. Just put a comment. Whoops, I don't want that. Sorry. So that'll be a foreign key. And again, you can set this to null if you're so inclined, and that will be a navigation property. And it's not hull, of course, it's null. All right, so that should be everything as far as what we have set up in here. All right. Now, the next thing I'm going to do, and you don't have to do it in this order, of course, but what I am going to do is I'm going to grab that a thing that I sent to you right before class. All right. And what I mean is, let me go back to this. All right. Right before class, I've got the ball store images right here. Okay. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to do a save as on it. I'm just going to save it to the desktop. It's called the images.zip. All right. Yeah, because I've already done it. So yeah, I'll replace what's there. All right. So somewhere there it is. And now I'm going to unzip it. All right. And again, I've got a couple versions of this, and that's why I put it into another folder. So inside of the images is a folder called images. I don't know how I've got two that are called the images, but I do. And in my images folder, there they are. These are all the balls that we're selling right here. And you'll notice if you look, I have both a thumbnails folder with all the thumbnails and a non-thumbnail folder that's got everything else. All right. So with that as it is, I'm going to go back to the project and I'm going to go to my www root folder right here. And as you can see, we do not have an images folder in there. So I'm going to add one. And everything in there is lowercase, so I'm going to do the same. So there's images. All right. Now with that added, I'm going to right mouse click on it, choose add, and I'm going to choose existing item. I'm going to go back to where I just was. So that's on my desktop. All right. And that was under the images. All right. And right now it's not showing anything. It's got just the folder with thumbnails. All right. But if I come down here and change this to all files, it'll show everything. And that's what I want. I want everything. Okay, there are 42 images in here. I believe that's what there are, and 42 in here. So I'm going to highlight everything. Control A to highlight it all, and I'm going to click Add. And that should add all of my stuff to the images folder. All right, so I should have the images in there. And did it add the folder with the thumbnails? I'm looking. And let's see, because I don't see it. All right, so I'm going to make sure that's in there also. So again, I'm going to right mouse click on here, choose Add. All right, existing item. Oh, I think I know what the problem is. I think it doesn't like it when you work with folders. So in here, under images, I'm going to make a new folder. So I'm going to add a new folder that I'm going to call thumbnails. All right. And then I'm going to open up the thumbnails folder. And I'm going to add an existing item. I'm going to go back to where I was just a minute ago. All right. So on my desktop, under the images, under thumbnails. All right, it doesn't show anything until I go and say all files. And there they are. All of them should have a TN on there for thumbnail. All right, so again, I'm going to highlight everything. Control A, Control C to copy. All right, or just Control A and then click Add. So now I should have my thumbnails here as well. All right, so what I should have here now, unless I miscounted, all right, is I should have here 84 images. 42 here. I think that's how many there were in here. In fact, 40. I've got a couple logos I was screwing around with too, and the thumbnail ones. So there's about 80 to 90 images. All right. We didn't have to do that right there, but I did want to make sure those were there and I didn't forget about them. All right. Okay. All right. So the next thing I want to do in here is first I'm going to close all this. Save it first. All right. And it's still, let's see, ball context. Okay, did we put that file in yet? All right, we'll do it right now then. That's fine. So let's go in and look underneath our models. All right. And we will add a new file in there. Now you already have this file. You already have it, but I'm going to bring it in like this. So I'm going to right mouse click and I'm going to try to see if we can do it this way. I'm going to add. And I'm going to, whoops, right mouse click, add existing item, and then see if we can find it. So it was out on the desktop. All right. And called it, of course, not the images. Let's look. Cancel that. All right. So we brought in the images successfully. All right. And the other file that I gave you today, it was earlier today. So those are the images. Wrong one. Let's see. I'll find it. All right. That's it. Bold context.txt. I sent that to you this morning. All right. So what I'm going to do, I mean, if you want, you can just open it too. There it is. All right. If you want, you can just open it and we can copy it in whatever way is easier for you. All right. So that's what I'll do. I'll do a Control A, Control C. Now it's in the clipboard. And then I'm going to come back here to my project. And under models, I'm going to right mouse click. I'm going to add a new item. All right. and I'm going to just call it what it is. All right, so that is the ball context.cs. All right, so there that is, and then I'm just going to paste in what I've got. All right, so that brought the stuff in. I'm looking and I see an error up there, so I'm going to see if I can figure out what the error was. Get rid of that. All right, don't worry about these. These are things we're going to use later for our shopping cart. So for right now, I'm just going to remove these. Please remove the shopping cart item, the order, and the order details. So you should only have in here ball and category. So you can see again, we've got 7 categories of balls, and there are like 42 of them. They're not each with 6. Some have more, some have less. All right, but hopefully you've got all that in there. So hopefully you now have ball.cs under models, ball context.cs under models, and category.cs under models. All right, I'm just going to do a file, save all here, and I'm going to close everything that was open. All right, now it looked like I still had an error someplace. I'll worry about that in just a bit. All right, but what I do want to do is I want to come in, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a couple interface files, and for each interface file, it'll have a quote regular file in it as well. If you say I don't know what you mean, then please just watch and hopefully you can follow along. So under models right here, all right, I'm going to start by right mouse clicking, choose add. All right, now instead of controller, class, or whatever, all right, I'm going to see if I put new item in here. Okay, so I right mouse clicked on models, add new item, and I want to choose interface. Now, the only magical thing about an interface is typically it starts with an I. If you instead chose class right there, you'd have to just change the word class to the word interface. And you can do that too. It wouldn't hurt anything is what I'm saying to do it that way. Now, you should be cognizant of the fact, we've talked about this back in the C# class, that one of the things about C# is it only allows for single inheritance. We've talked about that kind of thing before. It also provides for multiple interface inheritance. We're only going to use a couple interfaces in here, but it does provide those if we'd want them. So in here, I am going to name this one right here, interfaces by default. All right, interfaces should always start with the letter I, okay? And I'm going to have, these are going to both be repositories. There's going to be a category repository and a ball repository. So I'm going to call this one I category repository .cs. And when I get done, that's what it looks like. All right. This isn't going to have much stuff in it, this particular repository, or I should say this particular interface. It's going to have just one thing in it, and that's going to be to get all categories. So if we indeed do want to get all categories, we can do that. So this will be an I enumerable of type category, and it'll be called get all categories. And, all right, it'll only have a get in it. We won't put a set in there. We're not setting any categories in here. We're just getting our list of categories in here. That's all that we want to do right here, is to allow us to get those. All right. Okay. Now, Now that we've got a repository, an interface, I should say, now we want to have an associated file to go along with this. What do I mean? Well, we've got an iCategory repository .cs file. There it is, iCategory repository.cs. But we need something that's basically going to implement this. So we're going to create again under here another file, and that file is going to be called category repository. So right mouse click on models, add. All right, this will be a class. So we can go down to class here. All right, and we're going to call this one category repository.cs. Right, so there that is. Now, the first thing that we want to do is we want to make sure that this inherits our iCategory repository. As soon as I hit the space bar, it'll recognize that. So I'm going to tab, so it's going to do that. Now, I'm getting an error, and you actually should all understand why. It's because in the iCategory repository, we put a method in there, and we're not implementing that method in here. So we could manually put it in, or we could let the system put it in for us. Either way would work. I'm just going to manually put it in. I'm going to start by saying this: private read-only, read only. Now, I'm starting to adopt what the book says, and that is we're going to put in here something that we're going to actually call ball context. So ball context, and I'm going to call this underscore ball context. That's the recommendation when you're working on this. When we pass a value in to our constructor, we're going to do that in a moment, that we will just call ball context. And if you said, why do they recommend you do it like, I don't know, but somebody does. All right. So I'm going to come in here and say public catalog repository, I'm sorry, category repository. All right. And we want to put in here exactly what's shown. Ball context, and I just let the IntelliSense put it all in there for me. Now I'm still getting an error. That error will be fixed in about 30 seconds. We're getting that error right now because the get all categories that we specified in here, we don't have that implemented in here. That's why we're getting the error. So let's implement it now. Did I call it get categories or get all categories? I don't remember. All right, I called it get categories, which is fine. Just like that. All right. And again, ideally, when we set this up, that's going to work, and that's going to bring us all of our categories. All right. I don't see any errors on there. As far as I can tell, everything that I did was correct. And hopefully you can see this. It did provide for me the using statement. All right. If for some reason yours didn't, or you have an error, that's one thing that you might want to look at. So again, this is the repository. Remember, in here, what an interface does is it says, hey, if you create something based off of this interface, it must have that in it. We did that. We created the interface. Now we're creating the regular thing, so to speak, itself. All right. And hopefully what I just said made sense. All right. Or if it didn't, that you're going to ask. All right. So we've got those done. Let's do the ones for the balls and then we'll take a break. All right. So I'm going to start off in here. And the next thing that we'll want to do is we'll want an eyeball repository. Okay. So I've got both these. I think everything is fine. So I'm going to do a save all and I'm going to close both of these. Okay. All right. Now in here, I've got my class, which represents my table, ball.cs. I've got my context file. I've got a category repository, and an iCategory repository. So I want another interface. So I'm going to create right now iBall repository. Then I'm going to create ball repository. We'll talk about those when we get done, are done with them, and then we'll take a break. All right. So I'm going to come in here and under models, I'm going to add, and I'm going to add a new item. And again, it will be an interface. And this one will be eyeball repository .cs. All right, which looks like this. And well, what do we want in here? Think about this. All right, we're going to have two getters in here. One is going to be get all balls, which ideally is going to show us a listing of all the balls we have. All right, we're going to have another one that's going to be called get balls on sale. All right, some of the things in this interface file that we put in, this ball context, some of the ones in here is ball on sale. Some of them are true. Most of them I put in as false, but some of them are actually true. There's one. All right. All right. So in here, we're going to have three lines. An IEnumerable, and that'll be of type ball, and it'll be called get all balls. And it'll have in there again, it's just a getter. All right, we'll have another one. And this one will be called get balls on sale. And again, this is another getter. Finally, we'll want to be able to grab an individual ball. All right, or ball type. So we'll have ball, get ball by ID, and that will need an ID. In fact, let's call that ball ID. All right. So again, this right here, all right, that's our eyeball repository. All right. And then what we're going to make based off of that in just a second, all right, is we're actually going to put in our ball repository, which will inherit from eyeball repository. All right. And so it must have a get all balls, a get balls on sale, and a get ball by ID. All right. So this should basically return me everything, every ball there is. This should be where the is ball on sale basically is set to true. And this should be for an individual ball. All right. Hopefully, like I said, hopefully that all makes sense. All right. So I'm going to do a file save all here. And I'm going to right mouse click on my models again, choose add. I'm going to go down. This one is going to be a class, and it's going to be called ball repository.cs. Okay. And again, like we did before, I'm going to start this off with a private read only and ball context underscore. I just call it ball context again. All right. And public, we need our constructor. And we have to implement in here, all right, the three that we just said. So let's put them in one at a time. Guess we call that get balls. I probably should have called it get all balls, but it doesn't really matter in the end. Okay, so this is a getter. I'll fix that in a second. I just want that to say get. All right. Nope. Well, as always, let's see. Because of course, on my copy that I'm using, everything is fine, but not on here. So let's look. That wouldn't do diddly. Okay, that put a using statement in here. That fixed one of the errors, but I'm trying to figure out quickly what the other one is. Well, I'll tell you what, it's 107. I'm going to spend the next 8 minutes trying to figure out what that error is, and come back please at 1:15 and we'll pick it up right there. All right, I think I said come back at 1:20, so hopefully you're back. A couple things that I've changed in here. First of all, please make sure in your iBall repository that this says get all balls and that says get balls on sale. It may have said that already, all right, but this might have just said get balls. I wanted to say all balls. I'm trying to be so descriptive here. So that's the first thing. And then in the ball repository, I got rid of the errors. I've got a warning here, but that's okay. All right. And this first one here, I had parens there, and that was why I was getting the error. But this should look like this. Public IEnumerable of type ball, get all balls. And it should be returning everything. All right. We've also gotten here, and I won't remove that. I'm just going to let go up a little. We've got get balls on sale. Those are two different things. All balls is everything, whether they're on sale or whether they're not on sale. So you can see how similar these two are. The first two lines are the same, but here we've added a where that said we want to make sure that the ball is indeed on sale. All right, and then finally, we've got this get ball by ID. Now I'm getting a warning here that says possible null reference return. All right, and again, I'm sure that there is a way. I'd have to sit and play with it a little bit, but someplace in here, if we put in the question mark, that would go away. All right, I just don't feel like doing that right at the moment. All right. So I've already mentioned this to you, but I'm going to say it again, and that is typically next, then what we do is we do our controllers. All right, so let's take a look at those. All right, and there's two controllers in here we have to not worry about, but do something for, and that is a home controller and a ball controller. Well, if we look under controllers right now, we don't have a ball controller. We only have in here currently a home controller, and that's okay. All right. And again, we're going to keep this really simple. And I'll say this again. What I mean is I'm going to let you implement the home controller because I want this to look the way you want it to look. All right, and that's really more in the view. So there's a few things I guess we can put in here. So let's bring up the home controller. All right. And you already know this because we've talked about this before. We don't need this diagnostics, so I'm going to get rid of that to begin with. We're not doing any logging, so I'm going to get rid of all that. And we're not doing anything with privacy, so I'm going to get rid of all that. All right. Now, it is totally legit to go in there and do something with logging, all right, or to set something up with privacy. That's just, for lack of better words, it's over and above what we're doing in this class. All right. So in our home controller, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and do a private eyeball repository, and no, I don't need to get set. All right. Try that. There we go. All right. And again, you'll notice because we're getting these things. So it's saying non-nullable must contain a non-nullable value. Show potential fixes. We could put read only before that. All right. We could remove etc. We could declare it as being nullable. So I could come in there. All right. We can do that. That's totally fine. All right. Now we've got a home controller, but you probably have noticed already. All right. We don't have, there is no constructor in here. So I'm going to add one. right? And we're going to do that. And finally, we've got our index, and I'm going to do a little bit more in the index that's in there right now. All right. Now, one thing again, I'm saying this again, I am putting in what I have in mind. You may end up making changes in yours because again, I want you to create your own home page for this. All right. That being part of this class is being able to actually do some design work, and we've done almost nothing. All right. So you'll be able to doing this. So I've got a public iAction result index. So I'm going to put a little bit of stuff in here. And you'll notice I'm going to get an error because I haven't yet come in and created any view models. All right, that's okay. We'll fix it in just a moment. All right. So that'll be the next thing that we'll put in here. All right. And I would probably hope to help to spell it right too. There we go. All right. Okay. That is everything. We'll get this fixed in just a moment. Okay. And we're going to get that fixed by creating a home view model. And while we're at it, we'll create one for a ball view model too. All right, we'll create one for each of them. All right, so right now, like I said, we've got that error. And if we click down here, it'll say, do you want to generate the class? You can do that if you want to. I don't want to do it like that. So I'll put up with that error for right now. All right. And I'm going to come into my models folder and I'm going to create a folder under my models folder that's going to be called view models. Right? And in that view models folder, I'm going to add two files. Let's add the first one. We'll just add them in order. So we're going to come in here and let's see. I'm going to add a class. All right. And I'm going to call this ball list view model. .cs. Okay, that's the first one. And then we'll do another one in just a second. Now, what is this going to have in it? All right, and they have two things: a public IEnumerable of ball that we'll call balls with a get set. And again, we can just make sure it's initialized, so it's got null in there. And then we're going to have a public string, and this will be our current category. And we'll set that equal to string.empty. Now, my belief is that you all, what I'm about to tell you, if you'd be like, I already knew that, okay, good. But the reason that we're coming in here and we're creating a view model is so that we're able to come in and combine information from two different tables. For lack of better words, this kind of constitutes what we would do if we were doing a join, all right, in relational database terminology. All right, we're kind of doing the same thing here. So we've got that one. So let me do a save. And now I'm going to create the other one. All right. And the other one is going to be the home view model. So I'm going to again come in here, right mouse click, add. Again, I'm going to say class, and I'm going to call this home view model .cs. All right, it'll have one thing in it. And these will again be the balls on sale. And again, there'll be both a get and a set in here. That should have removed the error that we had in here previously. All right. All right, let me do a file, save all. Now, we haven't done squat with views or anything else. I'm not worried about that right now, but what I am going to do is I'm just going to try to compile it. I just want to see if there's any errors or not. All right, and it's telling me I've got errors, so let's see where these errors are. All right. It says the type or namespace home view model could not be found. Okay, well, there was home view model. It is there. All right, which typically means that I'm missing a using statement. Okay. All right, so I had an error here in my home controller where it said new home view model, and it was saying it couldn't find it. And the reason that it couldn't find it is I didn't have that using statement in. And I didn't have that using statement in because we just built that. All right, it's giving me one more error in here right now. And it says the type or namespace all context could not be found. All right, let's look at that. All right, so this was in our builder services. Go back and check because I'm trying to figure out why that error is in there, but we'll figure it out. So this is in our program.cs file. All right. Well, we got a ball context right there. But it's saying that it couldn't find it. So sometimes, at least when that happens, because there's a using statement missing. And that appears to be it. I didn't have a using balls.models. All right. So right now, I don't have any errors. I do have two warnings. Possible null reference return right here. Again, I could look through that and probably somewhere in there, if I put a question mark in, that might fix that. And a dereference of a possible null reference. That's in here. All right. Again, I have to go through both of those and check. I did have a couple. I mean, I originally had about, I think it was 13 different warnings, and I cut it down to 2. All right. So I've got both of those done. All right. So let's go in and think about it. So we've come in so far, and in our models, we created the equivalent of our tables. All right. So we did, again, the equivalent of our tables. All right. We've also put in 2 view models. We also added 2 interfaces with matching files, so to speak, in here as well. All right. But one thing we haven't touched on at all are any kind of views. All right. So if we do that now, if we go into views here, so let me close some of this stuff that's open. I'm going to close that. Oh, I'm sorry. Before we do that, we probably will want to come in and make a ball controller because we didn't do that. All right. So let's come in and put in a ball controller. All right. So in controllers, add controller, MVC controller empty. and it'll be all controller.cs. Okay. All right. All right. Now, of course, we're going to want to eventually come in here and put in some other stuff. So I'm going to hit enter a few times here. Okay. First thing that I want to put in here are a couple read-only variables for the eyeball repository and the eye category repository, just so we're able to reference those. And you'll see if you look, I should have hit the wrong key, but it does give you suggested names. You don't have to use those, right? But like I said, those are the suggested names. All right, now when I look in here, what is it saying? Right now it says remove the unused member because we're not using it yet. Declare it as nullable. So we can put that in. It looks like it'll get rid of it, which means probably so will that. Okay. Now I'm going to put in the constructor. And I'm going to put this over 2 lines so you can see what I'm typing. All right. And that's everything that's in there. Again, adding the question marks so that some of those warnings will go away. If it turns out later that that screws things up, then I'll remove them. All right. I don't see where that would happen, but you never know, I guess. All right. Now, what we're going to want to do in here, okay, is we're going to want to have both a list where we list out all of our balls, and we're going to have a detail. So when we click on a certain ball, we get just that information. I want to say that again, and it should make sense. All right. We want to basically set up a list, which is going to show us all of the balls. All right. But we also want to have in there, a details where if we click on a ball, all right, we're going to get the information about that ball. I don't think I even used this, so I'm going to remove it. Now this, what I just put in there might not make a lot of sense. And if it doesn't, don't worry about it. It's because we haven't added most of the view stuff yet, so. All right. Again, that'll be the list. So ideally, that's going to show us everything. All right. We also want in here a details where we're just listing an individual ball. Right. I'll let you put that in and then we'll go over what that means in just a second.
I'm ready to go over it. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So what we're saying in there is, again, we want an individual ball. So we're telling it to get it by ID, but if we provide an ID, which we can't find, we want to return not found, which is basically a symbolic type of constant, which is, that's what it is. It wasn't found. Otherwise, we're going to return the ball in question. All right. At least that's the hope. All right. So this is everything. This is basically after we click on one of these, for lack of better words. All right. So let's do a file, save all. And I got a lot of stuff open here, so I'm going to start closing a few things. All right. Now, as I mentioned previously, one thing we haven't touched right now, we haven't touched it all, has been anything with views. All right. So let's go in and do that. Now, when we look under views right now, let me close models and let me close controllers. We look under views, what do we have? Well, we've got home, we've got shared, we've got our view imports, and we've got our view start. And I think we've talked about this already, but when you look in here under shared, all right, technically, if we're not doing anything special with errors, we could remove that. I'm just going to leave it. With this validation scripts partial, when you've got partial files, they're files that typically you are going to combine two different files together. We're not really doing anything in there either. We'll look at the layout in just a bit. All right, but this is basically this layout that's in here is what we get by default. All right, this view start basically says in here, because it is permissible to have more than one layout. You've already seen this before. All right, when we had over here, when we did come in and we had our admin area, etc., you have actually seen this where there's been more than one of these. All right, and with our imports, the reason you put these in, all right, is so that you don't have to put the whole path into everything all the time. So if you've got something under ballstore.models, let's say I had X, I can now just say when I'm using it, just use X as opposed to use ballstore.models.x. All right. These are our tag helpers. I'm going to hit enter a couple times because we're actually going to create our own tag helper in a bit. We don't have to, but just so you see how indeed that is even done. All right. So again, right now, all we've got is home. That's it. All right. And under home, we've got two things, as you can see. All right. And that is index and that is privacy. Well, we removed the privacy stuff already. If you remember, we removed that from the home controller. So I'm going to come in here and just delete that. Again, we could put it in there if we were going to do something with that. All right. Now I did mention under home in the index here, this is what's in there right now. All right. Now there's all sorts of things that you can put in here. Just let me give you an idea. As an example, you could set up a bootstrap carousel in there, where if you had certain balls that were on sale, you could put that in there. You could have a ball of the week where you put that in there. All right. So you could, like I said, if it was, you could put in a carousel if you want to put multiple things. If you wanted to highlight a certain ball, you could do that. So you could put anything that you want. It's your homepage, but I'm just leaving it the way that it is. All right. So it's pretty darn ugly when you go to the homepage, but that's okay. All right. Okay. So next, I guess the next thing to do would be to go to and add a ball folder. So I'm going to do that. So under views, I'm going to add a ball folder. Remember, we want it singular, ball, and we're going to have two files underneath there. And you should already know what these are because we just looked at them. And that is, we should have a list and we should have a details. The list to list everything. All right. And the details for an individual ball. Okay, so let's go in here under ball and let's just add them both so we have them. So this one will be add view, and this will be razor view empty. All right, and this first one, again, will be list dot CSHTML. All right, that's garbage, of course. We'll get rid of that. And then let's add the other one, which will be details. All right. So I'm going to come back in here and add another view, razor view empty, and it'll be details.cshtml. All right. And again, the stuff that's in here, this is basically garbage. All right. Since I've got this one up, let's start with this one. All right. Now, my hope, and this has happened before. All right. If you remember, we did something in an earlier assignment where we had something pulled to the right and it was up on our navigation bar. And virtually everybody, all of you who did it, yours were pulled to the right, and that's good. Mine wasn't, even though I had a pull right in there. Never, for the life of me, never figured out why that was the case, but it was. All right. And maybe I'll go back sometime and fix it. I don't know. But we're going to build some stuff here, and my hope is some of this stuff, I didn't have errors with it, but it didn't come out looking exactly the way I wanted it to look. That's what I'm telling you. All right, so I'm going to start out here. I'm going to say, this is our ball. So I'm going to do an at model of ball. So again, this should be when it comes out. All right, this should be, for lack of better words, this should be the way that it's going to look when we have all of our balls up there. So now I've got here class equal thumbnail. I haven't written that yet. All right. In fact, after we get done with this, we're going to go into www root and we're going to add some of our own CSS in there. All right. So if you do get warnings or anything, don't worry about it. Now that should, what's in there, that should make sense. This is saying, show us the full picture of the ball. If for some reason that picture is missing, you should be showing us the name of the ball. All right. And I found some article off online that talked about using these captions and polls and stuff. So we're going to try it and see if it worked, or it works or not, does not work. Don't want that, sorry. That's it. And hopefully, looks like I spelled this wrong. All right. Hopefully that's going to allow us on our page to add a ball to the cart. Now this right here is our details page. So in other words, we had our list of balls and we clicked on a ball. So we should be getting a bigger picture. All right, not one of the thumbnails, but one of the bigger pictures. All right, because again, we're getting the details. All right. Okay, so we've got details and we've got list, and list is basically empty. This is basically finished. So I'm going to do a file, save all. All right, and I'm going to go over to list, start to fill that in. Okay, now, a couple things before we get going that I want to mention in here. All right, and one of them is what we're going to attempt to start doing is, for lack of better words, we're going to try to cut down the amount of code we have by, I don't know why I got the if there, but I did. Okay. We're going to try to cut down the amount of code that we have. We don't want to have duplicative code if we can help it. All right. So this is going to look a little different for an HTML page. I'm just telling you that right now. Don't worry if it does. All right. All right. I'm going to save this. And again, I'm just going to try to compile it to see if I have any errors. And it says I do. All right, give me a sec here. Oh, got a bullet view model right there, which usually says that it's missing some kind of a reference. Hmm. error is right here. All right, let's just take 9 minutes till 2:10. If I can find it, I'll show you what the error was. And if I cannot, even though it's only 2, we're going to call it a period. I'm not going to go on this if we have errors. I've done that before. I don't want to do that. So let's come back at 2:10, please. During the interim, I'm going to try to find my error. All right, it's 2:10. Couple of errors that I found, so I'm going to show them all to you. All right. So let's see. I believe it was in here in the list.cshtml. You have to check on yours, but I think rather than ball description, I just had description. That was an error, and that caused actually some of the other problems that I was having. All right, no problem there. No problem there. This, when I originally created this, I called it balls instead of ball store. So I kept putting in here balls and it didn't know what I was talking about. So it's giving me an error, but this should be ball store right there. Models.view models. Now, when I did that, I'm down to just 1 or 2 warnings in here. All right. Now, by no means is the program, ready yet, but it does compile now until we get to here. And then it says an unhandled exception occurred while processing the request. So I'm in my eyeball repository. It says unable to resolve that while attempting to activate the home controller. All right, so going back to my home controller. All right, doesn't like something that's in here. So I'm going to have to check on that and see what it is. All right, we've made some progress. We went for pretty much not 2 hours, but probably an hour and a half. All right, and I want to fix these warnings that I have, and I'm going to just pick it up there tomorrow. So, all right, what I'd like everybody to do to prepare for Wednesday's class. All right, for Wednesday's class is what I would like you to do is to go and in your book, just take a look at this. All right, this is that what we have been working on. So we want 15 and 16 are the last 2 case studies in there. We've gone through 12. All right. We're not going to do 14 because that's test automation. I asked Evan, he didn't do it either. All right. There isn't one for 13. So we've gone through 12. Again, skipping 14. On 15, we're going to talk about tag helpers, partial views, and view components. We're going to get into a lot of that stuff tomorrow. All right. But I want you to work on this. And then 16, what we're going to want to be able to do is to authenticate and authorize users. So in other words, as you can see right in here, before the user can do anything, she or he is going to have to log in. All right. So that'll be a very simple type of login type of thing. And as you can see, if you're not registered, you'll be able to register as a new user. So I'm going to ask, not right now, because we haven't talked about that stuff yet, but that you're going to try to do 15.1 and 16.1 yourselves. What I'm planning on having us do together is Project 16.1, where we're going to go back to that quarterly sales app that we did a while ago. As it says, it was from Project 11.1 or 13.1. I don't think we did anything on 13, just 11. And we're going to go back and attempt to add authentication and authorization to that. All right. So as you can see, okay, for managing users, you can add users in 2 ways there. So if you look at the example, Grace is a user. All right. But notice we can add her to admin or remove her from admin. So in other words, she can be a quote regular user, or she can be a quote admin user. So this is what we'll want to go in and attempt to add to our app that we don't have in there right now. All right. Now, what I want to do then is I want to figure out, there's a couple things that are hinky in here. When I did it myself before, I'm getting some warnings and some other stuff I didn't get before. That's why I don't want to go on. We will tomorrow. All right. And then on Wednesday, we will go through chapter 16 from the book. After we go through chapter 16 from the book, all right, after we do that, we'll go through at the end of chapter 16. I think I mentioned this already. We'll go through the bookstore app that they've been working on, and then we'll go through on here. We'll look at this 16.1 that is right here. And we'll look at the 16.1 from here. And that's the last one. All right. So as you can see in here, like I said, there's a login page. All right. And you're also able to go in, it looks like, and add some technicians, etc. All right. So some progress today. We've got started on this. Like I said, I've had a couple warnings here that I didn't have when I did this before. So I'm going to work on that between now and 4 o'clock, attempt to fix those so we can go over and continue on with this tomorrow. All right. So if you do want to do something, you can start reading chapter 16. All right. We'll do the stuff for 15 as well, even though we didn't talk about it. We'll put some of that stuff in there. All right. I'll talk to you tomorrow then. Have a good day.
Thank you, you too.